Podcasting from Heroes Media Group with real, relevant, and raw opinions. This is the College Sports Hour with your host, Clint McPherson, and co-host, Greg Dixon.
Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 17 of the College Sports Hour. I'm your host, Clint, and I'm sitting here today with my partner in crime and co-host, Greg. What's up, brother?
Hey, man. Hope you're doing well. Hope everybody had a great Christmas and looking forward to a new year.
Oh, without a doubt, man. We all, it seemed like we all had a good Christmas, and the
Absolutely.
new year, it came in the blink of an eye, man. I mean, it was like, I remember welcoming 2018 in, and now we're right here on the verge of 2019, and exciting things to come, man. We have the college football playoff national championship game, and then we have basketball going to be in full mode kicking off in January, to where we're going to be working our way to March Madness, and I cannot wait, man, because that is one of the best times of the year when you have all these basketball teams just going at it, and then we finally are able to get a national champion and crown them in this probably the best tournament there is right now.
Yeah, man, I would agree with that, man. It's going to be a great rest of the season with some college basketball season, and it's a great way for us to end out the college football season as well.
Oh, man, I can't wait. So this week was one of the most anticipated and exciting weeks of the college football season. We get, and it's finally in the books.
Yep.
But the bowl games as a whole, man, they have just been very underwhelming, and they have been all over the place. And I just
right.
and fairly predictable to a certain degree, but just not that exciting, my man.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, most of the games right here, they turned into blowouts, or and one team just running away with it. You've had a couple of good ones in there, and that certainly was the case with our with the semifinals and the playoff as well.
Brutal, man. But today, guys, we'll continue the bowl season conversation by talking about the bowl games that took place this week as we inch closer and closer to the national championship game between Alabama and Clemson. Another year comes by, and it seems like whether it's Alabama or Clemson in the conversation or in the talks, we are here, we are getting closer, and those are the two teams pinning off for the national championship. And our primary focus being on the college football playoff disaster in this episode. But as we talk about the new Era Pinstripe Bowl, we saw Miami, Wisconsin square off, but we'll briefly have to talk about what went down today and the huge announcement that came down from the University of Miami with Mark Richt unexpectedly announcing his retirement today after an unexpected 7-6 season, man. They started the year off 5-1, so we'll get into that. We'll give our thoughts on the Alabama versus Clemson National Championship game, and then we'll transition to what went down during Week 8 in the college basketball ATP Top 25, which wasn't much, but we still had some good wins and some good upsets. And then we'll take a look at what we have maybe missed or need to know about the college basketball season so far heading into January. So with that said, guys, let's start off with some college football. 14 bowl games, brother, were played over the week. And like I said, when I said underwhelming or just very predictable, that's what we got. And so we'll quickly run through some of these games with to include the scores as well. But And when we do this, man, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about Miami's embarrassing loss to Wisconsin, Auburn's beatdown of a Purdue team that we gave a lot of props to what they did after beating Ohio State. We'll talk about Florida's dominating win over Michigan, Clemson rolling over Notre Dame, and Alabama's win over Oklahoma, which, to me, man, we'll get into it a little bit more, but Alabama jumps out 28-0 in that one and basically puts the foot off the gas, which it just very head scratching to me, but we'll get into that in a second. So let's start off on Wednesday, brother. December 26th. Minnesota beats Georgia Tech 34-10 in the Quick Lane Bowl. Both teams finished the year at a okay 7-6 year, but the Golden Gophers were just too much for the Yellow Jackets of this one, man.
Yeah, not a whole lot to talk about here. I mean, it's two teams that, outside of their fan bases, nobody was really paying attention to. Minnesota comes away with the win. They get the nice little trophy for the Quick Lane Bowl over the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Moving on.
Yeah, here we go. So, man, this game right here was a game that I was, okay, you can expect Cal's had a decent defense all year.
Yeah.
And so you saw the defense step up and play good, but TCU this game was just a disaster from the beginning. Very boring. TCU beats Cal 10-7 in overtime in the Cheez-It Bowl. I hope nobody gets to take home any Cheez-Its after this embarrassing display of football. If you're a defensive guy, you might have liked it, but game was ugly, man. Both teams combined to throw a total of 9 interceptions, brother. But in the end, TCU walks away with being victorious after hitting that 27-yard field goal in overtime.
Yeah, even if you like defensive stands, I don't know that this is a game that you can still consider, a good one with the number of turnovers. Yeah, your team's going to create a couple turnovers, but I mean, when both teams combine to throw for 9 interceptions, I mean that's not just really good defense. I mean that's a lot of bad offense that's being played in this game as well. So okay, TCU, you won the Ugly Bowl. Good
yeah, and on top of that, man, nobody can capitalize off these turnovers.
Yeah.
That's even more mind-boggling because 9 interceptions. So that's 9 turnovers, 5, I think Cal threw 5 interceptions, TCU 4, but nobody could score off of that. And that's just,
right.
I mean, obviously some of those points might have came off of those turnovers, but dude, when you have 9 interceptions, nobody can capitalize, like you said, congratulations TCU for winning the Ugly Bowl.
Exactly. That's the Cheez-It Bowl no more. It's the Ugly Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the Toilet Bowl.
I like that one a little bit better. Toilet Bowl it is. We'll just coin it that from now on until we get a little more offense going.
There you go.
So let's move on to Boston College, man. The Boston College and Boise State game that never really happened. They started the game. They kick it off. A.J. Dillon runs in for, a touchdown. They go up 7-0. But the game gets canceled due to weather, which wipes out A.J. Dillon's first quarter touchdown run. Boise State finishes the year 10-3. Boston College just finishes 7-5. Two totally different seasons, but at the end of the day, this game, the Surf Pro First Responder Bowl, just doesn't get played, and I don't know what that does, and I don't know what happens when you cancel a bowl game if you get whatever. But hey, it happened.
In my mind, Boston College scored a touchdown. The game was called when they were in the lead. Boston College wins. There you go.
Boom. I like that. Dude, I'm with you on that. The game is called. It doesn't matter. It's like in baseball. You go a certain amount of innings. If you don't reach that, it's a tie or whatever. The game wasn't played. No. Boston College, you win. This game was played.
Yay.
So officially, Boston College should finish the season off 8-5.
There you go.
And then Boise State 10-4. But hey, it is what it is. But let's get to another game on December 27th, brother. Your team shows out. The Duke Blue Devils, they blow out Temple 56-27 in the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl. But not only do they blow them out, Daniel Jones shows out right before he's going to the NFL, man.
Yep.
He throws for 5 touchdowns. He was 30 for 41, 423 yards. They completely dominated the second half because going into halftime, Temple was winning 27-21.
Yep.
So what did you think about this one, my man?
Well, I tell you what, I had my questions, and I still have my questions about Daniel Jones and how well he will do at the NFL. Man, there's a lot of projections, a lot of people that are smarter than me that are projecting that he's going to do really, really well. Tell you what, he played his butt off in this game right here. Not only did he throw for the 5 touchdowns, but he also rushed for 1 as well to get his total up there. I'm sorry, he did throw for 5 touchdowns and he ran for 1 as well. I think I'm right on that one.
You're right.
So, anyways, but man, pulled this game out right here, and you're right, blew him out in the second half. Man, Duke's offense looked really, really good in the and throughout the entire game, man. Daniel Jones was throwing some dimes. He had some great throws, man, hitting some guys on the run, hitting them. They weren't just like dinking and dunking either. I mean, they were long bombs he was throwing down the field, man. It was if you're a Duke fan, this was a great game to watch.
No, exactly. I enjoyed it. I'm not a Duke fan, but I enjoyed it because I like seeing. I went to a Duke game earlier this year, and Daniel Jones, you can tell he has talent, and sometimes it's like whether he has NFL talent or not. That is to be, determined. But at the end of the day, he is a good quarterback. He's a good pro-style quarterback. I think he's going to be good for the next level, and he really makes an impression by doing what he did in this game. And Temple is a team that we've seen this year. They can hang with you. And when they're up 27-21, I'm like, man, Temple, they're going to pull this one out. But Duke just steps up huge in that second half, and both teams finish with a respectable 8-5 record on the year.
We'll take it.
Yeah, definitely. Now let's just go on to the Wisconsin game. We've already mentioned Miami at the beginning of the episode, but this Wisconsin just completely routs Miami. When you look at a 35-3 score, sometimes you really can't say they routed them, but I mean they dominated this game. The new Era Pinstripe Bowl. I mean Miami started the year 5-1 on the season. They finished, the 2016 year, Mark Richt's first year, at 9-4. They started his second year in 2017 at 10-0, and they lose their final 3 games. And so they're just in complete, like the turnover chain was back for a little while, or they claimed
Right.
it was, but they forgot that winning is part of that turnover chain. That's part of the claim for it to be back. And I got it. You're trying to celebrate, and it looked like they're heading in the right direction.
Right.
9-4 season and 10-3 season, and then a completely unexpected 7-6 season. But man, what does this do? Because not only did they lose this game and completely get outplayed by Wisconsin in this game, they go on to finish their season, and lose two out of the last 7 games. So they lose 5 out of the last 7 games and only win 2. But what does that do, man? Mark Richt 3 days later walks away, announced today that he's walking away from the game. He's retiring. He had an awesome, when I say awesome, I think it's awesome because it's a good, respectable record. He was 145-51 for the Bulldogs.
Oh, yeah.
He goes on to win only 2 SEC championships and only has that to show for it. But Miami wasn't that bad. 26-13 record. They were horrible before he takes the job. He gets them turned around in 2 years, and then they completely lay an egg and finish 7-6 on the season. Man, what does that do, and where does that leave this Miami program?
Well, he overachieved, I think, by everybody's standards last year, and yet he underachieved this year based on last year. But, I think that most people would have still said that they were trending in the right direction, even following this really embarrassing loss in which Wisconsin ran all over them and their defense was unstoppable. I think they picked Miami off on their first throw of the game. But as far as the program is concerned, man, you got to believe that Miami is way behind the 8 ball trying to get a head coach at this point. All the teams that had wanted, the top tier head coaches that they were looking at for this year have already been scooped up. And my assumption is that Miami doesn't really have anybody to look at because they weren't looking at, they didn't have any ideas that they'd be looking for anybody at this point in time. And so, man, that puts them way behind the 8 ball. I don't know if it's got to hurt your recruiting class that you had coming in for next year as well, because now everybody's going to push back from that, and they're going to start looking at other places that they can go because of the upheaval that's going on in Miami right now. Who knows who's going to take over the program now?
Yeah, and if the defensive coordinator was known this before he left for the Temple head coaching job, maybe he would become the coach, because they had one of the top defenses in the nation, throughout the year. They allowed like 19 points a game. So obviously defense wasn't the worst part of this team. It was scoring, and the offense, just the up and down, the inconsistent play at the quarterback position.
Exactly.
They played musical quarterbacks for pretty much most of the year. And
they played it in this game.
Yeah, they
pulled the second string off there to come and play, or who was the second string, who was the first string at one point in time, come in and start this game.
Right, and they flip and flop and go back. They turned the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions and 1 fumble. That's just not going to get it done. And what's even more mind-boggling is to have the talent that they have on that sideline, but to only come away in this game with 169 total yards. That goes to show you that Wisconsin was prepared and Miami was not. And
Exactly.
it's like, well, I don't know, like you said, what are they going to do? All the coaches seem like, I got it. It's a Miami program. They can probably reach for some money and get somebody, but you're not going to get a quality coach like Mark Richt. And obviously, do I think Mark Richt was going to lead them to the promised land? No, but he helped turn that program around faster than everybody thought it would happen. And he showed that he is a coach that can go and win. He might not be able to win big games, but in Georgia, and that's maybe why he got let go at Georgia, because when you have 145-51 record and you're averaging like 10 wins a season, you're a good coach. But at the end of the day, are you making the right decisions, or you're putting your team in the right positions to be successful at the end of the year? And it seems like it's a consistent thing with him, is the big game was always elusive. It's something that he could not deliver on, and that proved to be true at Georgia. And it seemed like, again, 9-4 his first year, 10-0 his second year, and then they lose their final 3 games, and then this year, their last 7, they go 2-5. So it seemed like he had a problem finishing, not starting, because they can come out the gate hotter than any team in the nation. But can they stay there? Obviously, under his guidance, no. But he put the right pieces in place. He had a great defensive coordinator. He leaves for Temple, but I think the defensive coordinator saw the writing on the wall. Mark Richt, he was possibly going to be the coach going into the future, for a couple more years, and I don't know if maybe they were telling him, dude, 7-6 is unacceptable. You're going to get fired, and they let him go out because of his notoriety in his record to show some respect, maybe. But at the end of the day, for him just to completely walk away, I don't know what happened, man. Because look, some of these games, it's not like they completely got dominated other than this game, but it's one of those head scratchers for me. I'm like, Mark Richt, dude, you're a good guy. You're a very respectful human being. I would love for you to be my son's coaches. But at the end of the day, you got to win, man. And so I think the pressure was there maybe, and it was too great for him to say, like, dude, 7-6 is unacceptable out of Miami program.
I tell you what, man, let's play conspiracy theorist here. Let's just venture out there and say that you're right on the idea that maybe Miami felt like 7-6 wasn't a good enough season for them, and they were going to let him go. If that's the case, Miami is in a world of trouble at this point in time.
Sure.
Because you just had this guy coming off of saving your program and putting it back in at least some respectable contention, and then after one season that he goes 7-6, you're gonna usher him out the door. Dude, that's you're not gonna. I'm sorry, I don't care who the Miami faithful are.
Yeah.
You're not getting anybody to follow that. It's gonna be horrible, and I'm telling you, it's already gonna be bad. This next year will not be a good year for Miami.
Yeah, and like you said, it's going to mess recruiting up. It's going to mess a lot of things up. And who are they going to find? Are they just going to pull somebody from the staff now, or is somebody going to get fired, or is it going to be an Urban Meyer move? It's like, geez, I'm not coaching anymore. Oh, well, Miami's job's open. Let me go over there and save them.
Right?
And so I could see something crazy like that playing out. But Miami finishes the season at 7-6, while Wisconsin finishes 8-5. Wisconsin, like I said, routes Miami in this one. It wasn't even close. And I just – hopefully everything's good with Mark Richt. But at the end of the day, appreciate what you did. You gave us some good highlights from time to time, and you brought the turnover chain back temporarily. I don't know if we'll see that much.
Out the door.
So we'll see what happens there. But this game we're moving to now, Baylor and Vanderbilt. This was a game, the way they scored in this game, I was not expecting this. Baylor beats Vanderbilt 45-38 in the Academy Sports Plus Outdoors Texas Bowl. Like I said, this was a surprising shootout. I went with Vandy just to go against you because you said Baylor. But it was one of those things that the Bears earn a 7-point victory. Baylor finishes the year at 7-6 while Vanderbilt limps home with a 6-7 record. And this is why I don't like them allowing individuals that have a 500 record to make a bowl game, because I think if you go and play a bowl and you lose, you should still come out with a winning record. And obviously Vanderbilt, they had the it was one of those things, like, you could finish 7-6, you could have walked away with a winning record, but when you lose a game, nobody with a 500 record needs to play in a bowl game, because you devalue the bowls, and what they stand for. But then when you lose, you say, "Oh, we played in the bowl game, but we finished 6-7." I just think that's ridiculous.
It's nothing. I mean, the game changing. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's not an exciting thing for either one of these programs to say that they walked out of here with whatever they walked out of here with Baylor winning. Okay, good for Baylor. They got the win. For Vanderbilt, I mean, you go 6-7. If you're 6-6 or if you're 6-7, it's really not making that big of a deal. Your program still was pretty, wasn't great this year.
Oh, exactly. Let's go on to the Washington State game, man. So this was on Thursday, December 27th. Number 13, Washington State, they pull out a real close game against number 24, Iowa State, 28-26 in the Valero Alamo Bowl. And this, man, I was saying this was going to be the Brock Purdy show, and he comes out playing, but he had 2 costly interceptions, 2 costly turnovers. But, man, they gave the mustache a run for their money in this game, but the Cougars would edge them in the end for the win. And so Washington, with this win, man, they finished the year with an impressive 11-2 record, while Iowa State finished at 8-5. So you could tell they completely had different season, but Iowa State had some good. They trending in the right direction. They had some good quality wins with Brock Purdy at the helm, and the mustache delivered. And Coach Mike Leach helps this team to 11-2 record. Man, it was impressive what the Cougars did, and sometimes wondering, should they have been one of the teams that actually got a chance? I know they lost and they're sitting in that 13th position, but it's like, man, if they could have just won those, and I'm not saying they deserve to be in it, obviously, top 4, but it's like if they could have just won that one game they needed to win, we could have been talking about them possibly in it. I know it was a long shot, but, their offense is exciting.
Oh, no doubt. And let's, before I jump in talking about Washington State, man, I want to give a little bit of props there to Brock Purdy, man. Let's remember this, at the beginning of this season, he was the third string quarterback on this team, and because of injuries, he got an opportunity, and he put this team on the back, man. And with his abilities to run the ball and throw the ball, he really put them in a great position to make it to a bowl game and to have this opportunity to play Washington State. So they did play well, and he played pretty well in this game. Not well enough, but played pretty well. But for Washington State, man, I tell you what, man, the mustache, he was on point for the majority of this game, man. He made some really great throws. Man, there were two spectacular catches in this game. One for Iowa State, where he just reached out over the defender and brought that ball back, and then the other one that kind of sealed the game for Washington State on that throw right there. I think when it was fourth down and everything, and they threw the ball to get that first down. He caught it between his legs or whatever, man. That was insane. But Iowa State did have a chance, man. They scored a touchdown there late in the fourth quarter. We decided to go for two to try to tie the game up, and man, just came up a couple of yards short. But man, this was a really exciting game to watch as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, Washington State finishes the year with an impressive 11-2 record, while Iowa State finishes at 8-5. So, Congrats on that in the mustache. So let's move on to the Syracuse game. This was something that it was like the writing was on the wall. Sure. You know, the Eric Dungey-led Orange were just too much for the Will Greer-less Mountaineers. And it was one of those things we knew was going to happen to a certain degree. You know, like, what is the backup going to do? He's not going to be on the same level as Will Greer, obviously. You know, they were competitive at the beginning of this game, but, man, the 17 points that Syracuse scores in that fourth quarter was just the difference in this game. And it was just that fourth quarter surge that pushed Syracuse over that hump, and they end up winning and walking away in the Camping World Bowl with a 34-18 victory, man. And Syracuse looked impressive while they did it.
Yeah, man. Eric Dungey gets a chance to walk off the field. You know, as his last time playing for the Syracuse Orange, gets a chance to go out as an MVP of this game, and so good for him. He had one of the most interesting plays of the bowl season when he's being chased out of the pocket by the defenders for Washington. For West Virginia, starts rolling around, and it looks like he just throws the ball up for grabs, man. And homeboy comes back, grabs it, and then runs it back down the field, man. Yeah. Almost scores a touchdown. It was a crazy play, and the thing that kind of caught me about that is as they're doing the highlights of this, you see Eric Dungey running down beside the referee as they're running back down to the towards the end zone or whatever, and the referee's laughing at Eric Dungey about the play that had just happened. Man, it was hilarious. At least I found it hilarious. But anyways, props to Syracuse, man. Getting a 10-win season, man, that's huge for a program that's coming off of two straight years of having 4-win seasons. So they get a 10-win season this year. Good job for them. Great job, Eric Dungey and the Orange for moving Syracuse ahead in their program forward.
Yeah, that was huge, and that play was amazing too, because he was running for his life. He just throws the ball up, and the dude, just cuts across the field and gets tripped up before he scores. It would have been right. It was still a highlight though, even though he didn't score a touchdown. But like you said, Syracuse finishes the year with an impressive 10-3 season, while West Virginia, they would end up with an 8-4 season. Not a bad season for them, and so they both, can hang their head high in this one, or look up. Because they're trending in the right direction, both programs. What's gonna happen now that West Virginia doesn't have Will Greer? We'll have to wait to see that though.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Auburn game, man. This was a game that we haven't seen much offense from Auburn. It was Jekyll and Hyde for them.
Oh, really?
Right. and so we gave them through the year. We dug at Auburn a lot.
Oh yeah.
And so in Purdue, they just smashed Ohio State.
Right.
And there was a lot of offense there from Purdue. But in this Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl, Purdue didn't show up, and Auburn's offense was just electric. They went on in that first half. They scored 8 touchdowns in the first half against Purdue, and they set a bowl record for most points scored in any half of a bowl game. And Purdue was just completely outmatched in this game. Auburn finishes the year 8-5, while Purdue limps home with a 6-7 record. But man, Auburn again electrifying that offense, especially in that first half.
So I'm convinced that Purdue was still at home opening up Christmas presents, and they just threw people from the streets into pads and jerseys for Purdue to get them out there to chance to play, because this did not look like any kind of football team that had any clue or had any real rationale about being out on the field to play the game. Because Auburn, man, they just ran all over them in this game, and it's not like Auburn's like this great team, but maybe we were just a little bit flukish and a little bit high on the wrong team of Purdue here.
Yeah, and I just didn't see this one coming. I didn't see it being as dominating as a performance as it was by the Auburn Tigers, and it was just impressive the way they went about it because, their coach, he's been on the hot seat, on and off the hot seat, back and forth. It's like, what does this do for him? I don't know. It can't hurt him, obviously, but at the end of the day, it's like this is what the Auburn fans were looking towards, for most of the year.
Sure.
And this Auburn team, the way they were playing offensively and defensively, to say they could have probably hung with an Alabama or a Georgia in this game because they just came out throwing blows. And I'm not saying that they would have put up 63 on these teams, but the way they came out with the electricity, man, they could have really made it a game between those two teams, So
no doubt.
I mean, Auburn, I give you props for coming out being ready against Purdue. It was very exciting to see you hang 63 on this Boilermakers team that basically just embarrassed Ohio State this year.
I got nothing else to add.
Oh, yeah, me neither, man. So let's move on to the Nevada. We're not going to say much about this, but Nevada goes on to beat Arkansas State in overtime, 16-13. I love overtime games, but again, the 2 overtime games this week were just not impressive to me. A 10-7 game, a 16-13 game. It wasn't like, they went to 7 overtimes and the score was 99-97. It was one of these, score some points, guys.
Please, somebody.
And so Nevada beats Arkansas State in overtime, 16-13 in the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl. But this game does not make me want to take out a home loan at all. It makes me want to keep my money.
And I don't want to become a Nevada or an Arkansas State fan after this game either.
Yeah, and the fans deserve their money back. It's like when you get games like this, man, come on. It's like the 10-7 TCU game. Give me my money back. It's like we should all get refunded because this is pitiful. This is not college football. But hey, to finish with that though, they both finished with respectable 8-5 seasons. Which my team, the Florida State Seminoles can't say.
You're taking an 8-5 season.
I'll take an 8-5 season. I mean, especially if you're Nevada and Arkansas State.
Sure.
Let's move on to Virginia. Virginia, they beat down South Carolina. And I say beat down. They only score 7 points in each quarter. But that's enough, especially when you hold the Gamecocks scoreless throughout the game. And they win in the Belks Bowl 28-0. The Cavaliers beat up the Gamecocks, and it was an ACC for the SEC matchup. But when you look at it, these teams throughout the year were just not too exciting. Virginia did have some big wins. Miami at the time was looked at to be a big win when they upset them and beat them. Yep. But, dude, another game, 28-0. It's just South Carolina wasn't ready to play, and I was just surprising that they didn't score.
I think Virginia went in this game as a 6 or 7 point underdog.
Yep.
So, you throw that in there as well. You see how they threw it out there for them. And this was really in South Carolina's backyard. I mean, this game was played in Charlotte. So, I mean, it's right there for South Carolina to take on. It's good for me. I'm glad Virginia won. And that's about it. So, good for them.
Yeah, so with that win, Virginia finishes with a respectable 8-5 season, while South Carolina, limps home at 7-6. So, not terrible years for them, but obviously if you're in that fan base, you definitely want them. Virginia seems to be treading in the right direction. I just don't know if Will Muschamp is the man to resurrect South Carolina, because as he showed at Florida, he couldn't get it done, and I just don't think this guy's a head coach. But hey, I'll let South Carolina make that determination.
True story.
So let's move on to a team. This is definitely a game I didn't see coming. The way number 10 Florida just completely dominates number 7 Michigan, 41-15 in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. After Michigan jumps out to 10-6 lead, I'm just sitting here thinking, this Michigan defense, even though they're missing a whole bunch of pieces, I mean, don't get it twisted. Michigan had basically half the team sitting out. I mean, to a certain degree, or the people that really are their playmakers. They were basically just sitting on the bench besides Shea Patterson and some of the offensive parts. But when you look at it, man, Florida dominated this game after that 10-6 lead. I'm thinking the Michigan defense is going to just step up, hold them, to a very low score. But Florida and Franks, they ball out, man, and go on to win this game 41-15. And it was, like I said, from the second quarter on, it was all Florida.
You're right, man. It's another head scratching game that kind of makes you look around and say, man, what happens to Michigan? I mean, it's another year of where we have these high expectations of Michigan, expect them to come in there, do some great things, and they had all this momentum coming off of that first loss of the season, then going and winning all their games all the way up to the Ohio State game, and then completely laying an egg against Ohio State. And then they come into this game right here, and man, there's like, okay, you know what? Maybe Florida hasn't been that great this year. They've had some good games, but still not getting a whole lot of respect. You expected Michigan, if not to beat Florida, at least make this game competitive. And it wasn't. I mean, from that first quarter on, man, it wasn't competitive at all. And it makes you scratch your head and wonder again about, can Harbaugh do anything here with this Michigan Wolverine team?
Well, see, I mean, we talked about this at the beginning of the year. I'm just not sold on Harbaugh, and it was one of those things. It's like, I don't care. He could win 10 wins, or he had 10-win seasons or whatever it is, but it seems like, again, he cannot win the big games. He can't beat Ohio State's. I mean, he can't beat this team. He can't beat that team. He can't deliver in these bowl games. Right. And that's only going to get you so far with the Michigan fan base. They want, they're expecting to win. And I'm not saying they've been winning like Alabama or Clemson and winning all these national championships. But man, when you have a coach like that is brought in to resurrect this program, they bring in the Jordan brand, and they do all these big things, and again, they start off, they lose their first game, they win the rest of their games, they lose Ohio State, and then they lay an egg against Florida in their bowl game where when I'm looking at it, they're favored to win.
Yeah, sure.
And Dan Mullen just outcoached this guy. And so that I really give a lot of props, and the Gators finish at 10-3, have a very solid 10-3 season, even though their offense from time to time was very questionable.
Sure.
But you can see Dan Mullen groomed that team, and as the year went on, they got stronger. Defensively, they were there. Offensively was the question mark for this Florida Gators team all year, and I knew that Franks would not be the guy that could get them to that, over the hump. But as the year progressed and he got, his job was threatened, the new quarterback comes in, breaks his leg, breaks his ankle, whatever it was, it seemed to flip a switch with him.
Sure.
And he stepped up and he played huge for the rest of the year. And like I said, this Gators team finishes 10-3. Obviously, the Wolverines finished 10-3 as well, but it seems like it's the same story every year under Harbaugh. He just can't get it done for the Michigan fan base.
Well, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's another year, same story, different chapter. I mean, so we'll see what happens this offseason, and we'll see what happens as it rolls into next year. I would imagine that Harbaugh's still going to be at Michigan, but there's a lot of conversation about him going back to the NFL too.
I really think that would be the best move. I mean, because I'm a college football fan, but I also want to see, like, if a coach is brought in to do something, I want to see him do it. Yeah. If you're brought in to win us a national championship or bring us back to the promised land, do it. And I got it. It's hard. It's not an easy thing, or everybody would be doing it. But you have, especially when you have the Nick Sabans just dominating and the Dabo Sweeneys now just sitting there like, this is our time. Sorry, everybody else that's out there, the Notre Dames that haven't won a bowl game. They're 0-8 in their last 8 bowl games.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in just a second. But man, there's a lot of question marks with this Notre Dame team. And I was one of those guys saying, hey, look, they went undefeated. They deserve to be there. But after watching what they did against Clemson, I'm not so sure.
So let's jump into that.
Let's jump right into it and transition to it. So Clemson dominates this game. And again, it wasn't a blowout by no means when you're talking like a 60-3, but it was a 30-3 domination. They win 30-3 in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic college football playoff semifinal game. But the keys to this game, I got it. Dexter Lawrence is sitting out. He pops hot on whatever they want to say he popped hot on. Got it. I just don't think somebody would go through his whole career and then do something that stupid. And I got it. It just happens. But without him, that defense was lights out. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Justin Ross, and that Clemson defense just dominated from the kickoff, man. And I got it. It was close there for a second when Notre Dame scores that field goal. But after that, man, Clemson cruised an easy victory. So what are your thoughts now after seeing what happened on Notre Dame getting into the college football playoff and possibly taking a spot away from another team or two that were possibly more deserving?
All right. Well, it's easy to armchair quarterback the decision now after the game's been played and to say, you know what, they shouldn't have been in there. Yeah, it's really easy to say that. But when you're sitting there with a Notre Dame team who has an undefeated record, who had beaten, who had beaten the Northwestern, who had beaten Michigan out there, and several other teams along the way, I couldn't sit there in a good conscience looking at an undefeated Notre Dame team and say, no, you can't get in. Now, it looks like they had no business being in there. Of course, we could say the same thing about another team that played in the other semifinal game as well. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't really want to hear all the complaining out there about. See, I told you Notre Dame shouldn't have been in, and we should have. Well,
right.
if you should have been in there, then you should have won your games.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's kind of still where I'm sitting at.
I would agree with that, man. I mean, I got it. I really think looking at it. It's like I just don't think, and looking at the history of what Notre Dame has been through lately or over their last bowl games, they don't win bowl games.
Yeah.
So it seems like, okay, we're going to award them for beating a team that in, Michigan and whatever. And that was a good win at the time. But then you look at what Michigan did against Florida. You look at what Michigan does against Ohio State. And then you see some of these, and that's where the questions start coming in. And then you look at Notre Dame's bowl records in the past. I mean, the last time they went to and played Alabama, they got completely dismantled. And then they're 0-8 in their last 8 bowl games. So I just think, personally, even though I was one of the guys that says, okay, and I would probably say it again, that at the time, when you look at it, Notre Dame does deserve to be there because there's no rules or regulations saying just because they don't have a conference game, they shouldn't be in it. But now that I've had a chance to look at it and just sat there and watched the game and was not entertained at the least by Notre Dame and Brian Kelly, I just see it as moving forward. And I'm not sure you deserve to be in the college football conversation or the college football playoff conversation unless you end up playing in a conference championship game.
Right.
Or you do something like Navy does where you play 13 or 14 games a year anyway. And it could be I just think giving them that extra game or two would help with those questions. And I got it. They don't join a conference, but at least play an additional game or two, because if Navy goes undefeated with a 14-game regular season schedule when everybody else is playing 12 plus their conference championship game, I'm saying Navy, you deserve to be there. I mean, and that's just me, because you're playing more games during the season than anybody else. Plus, once you go through the college football playoff, if you went that far and could advance through it and had this amazing season, which I'm not saying a Navy will ever do that, but I'm saying when you play that many games, you got to give it to them. Like, dude, they went 16-0, you were 14-0, So at the end of the day, I just don't think Notre Dame needs to even be in that conversation unless they end up beating people 100-0 or some crazy ridiculous thing where they're putting up Oklahoma offensive numbers and then shutting everybody out defensively. I just don't think, looking at what Clemson did to them, it was just embarrassing.
You know who's salivating right now, don't you? It's UCF. Where's our chance?
Exactly.
Where are we at?
Exactly. But hey, if they beat LSU, dude, they self-proclaim themselves national champions 2 years in a row. Hey,
they got something to argue. I get it.
Good for you. You got something to argue, no doubt. So after this game, Notre Dame finishes the year with a 12-1 record. Not a bad year, great year. As far as, but just not a display of what we wanted to see in a college football semifinal playoff game. It was just they did not do anything, man. So Clemson, they move on to the national championship with a 14-0 record, and that's all I got to say about that. So let's move on to the game, the game that everybody was really waiting for. Because, when you look at it, how many people said Clemson was just going to walk through Notre Dame, and they did.
Right.
And I only think the only people that said Notre Dame was going to have a chance was probably Notre Dame fans. And so when we made our predictions, we said Clemson was going to win. And then we said Alabama was going to win, and they did exactly what we thought they were going to do. And everybody wants to say, and it made me laugh so hard to a certain degree, because I think Kyler Murray was like, I don't give a damn any other team in the country wouldn't have done. They would have laid over and whatever, and we fought back. I'm like, dude, check it out. You got it twisted. Alabama jumps up 28-0. Tui Tagovailoa is on point right now. He hasn't he didn't throw. He maybe threw one completion during the first half, and then when they come out in the second half, they stopped doing that. And it was like they played. They let Oklahoma. They were almost playing to like, we have a defense that's going to stop this offensive juggernaut, because they did that in the first half, allowing them only 10 points. But Kyler Murray, you knew he was going to get his. The defense laid off. They didn't play the same. The offense didn't play the same until they needed to. When Oklahoma started inching back, the Alabama offense was like, let's flip the switch back on and score 2 more touchdowns to go ahead and put this out of reach. But it was one of those things, they had to make it closer than what it would have been if they would have continued what they would have done. I just don't come at me and say, well, if the calls would have went this way, you shouldn't have fell behind 28-0.
This I mean, the final score, 45-34, pits this game being much, much closer than what it was. The game, the score may have been here, but at no point in time did anybody ever feel like this game was slipping out of reach for Alabama. It was this thing of, we can do what we want to do when we want to do it. And you said exactly right, man. They could flip on the switch anytime they wanted to. They were never scared. They were never nervous or anything like that. They flipped the switch on there when they felt like they needed to score a few more points, to put a little bit more distance in there for them. And I'm telling you, man, we said this thing going into this thing when the selections first came out. Yes, Kyler Murray could put up points. That Oklahoma defense was terrible. But you give Nick Saban an opportunity to have 5 weeks to prepare for Kyler Murray and that Oklahoma offense, they're not going to look the same. At the beginning of that game, they didn't look the same at all. They allowed Alabama to jump out to that 28-0 lead, and the game was over by the time the coin flipped.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, though. Some of those calls, somebody was saying, the guy didn't fumble the ball. I don't care what you say. Everybody's like, well, they called the fumble. It wasn't conclusive or whatever it was.
Right.
I got it. But the dude didn't fumble the ball. You could tell he didn't fumble the ball. So it was one of those things like the squirm after the end of it, the guy popped it out. So there was a lot of people saying this call was going, Alabama's paying the refs. I got it. But at the end of the day, you fall behind 28-0, whether they're paying the refs or not, or all the calls are getting, going towards Alabama. Dude, you fell behind 28-0. Let's just put it that. And you did not put yourself in position to get any of those calls. And so Alabama was their worst enemy in this game, as far as some of these, these false starts, killing drives. And so at the end of the day, when your quarterback only throws 3 incompletions, and he's throwing to his playmakers, and his receivers are getting separation at will. Anytime they wanted to go vertical, he could throw the ball to them. Anytime it was like, and then they're going to come down with the ball, because you're playing against the 129th ranked defense in the nation. I was not one, like, I would have, if somebody said, hey, you have the decision to go ahead and put your whole house up on this game, I would have went Alabama all day. It's like, look, we would take your house or whatever it was. It's like Alabama's going, because that defense is just horrific. Alabama has a good defense, so you see they hold a team that typically scored like 60 in every game they played to 34 points, and they could have held them to lower than that, and Alabama could have had more points than they scored. So at the end of the day, like you said, I did not see Alabama when they jump up 28-0 and it was 28-10. You expected Oklahoma to throw a couple punches back, but when you fall behind 28-0 against this Alabama team, probably one of the best Alabama teams there has been to date, you just are not going to win this game, and regardless if you have the Heisman Trophy winner on your team or not.
Exactly.
And so
I agree wholeheartedly.
And oh boy, he balls out though. Kyler Murray, give him props. He didn't give up.
Yeah.
His team didn't give up. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, you can say what you want. Kyler Murray did keep him in the game by adding that additional element and being that dual threat quarterback he is.
Sure.
He used his feet. He's a little micro machine. I love watching him run and getting it done that way. But you're going to have to hang more than 34 points to beat Alabama when you have that bad of a defense,
Well, I was about to say, I think the stat that kind of like put things really in perspective for me was that Tagovailoa had more touchdown passes than he did incomplete passes. I think he only had 3 incompletions the entire night, which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, he's a baller, man. And so what? And not to go on too much longer with his Alabama game, but man, the cool thing is he had a surgery on his ankle.
Yep.
Heading into this game, and they did some craziness. They drill through his ankle. They tie some stuff up. And he wasn't even 100% in this game. And if that's not 100%, I don't know what is. But he balled out, even not being 100%.
Yeah, he was great.
But that's it for that, man. So we go through the college football again. Not very, very impressive games. I really think, though, we have two teams that it's gonna be a lot more entertaining than any of these bowl games have been.
Yep.
So with that said, do you believe that both these teams sitting at 14-0 and seeing what they've done throughout the season, Alabama hasn't had as many scares. Trevor Lawrence goes down. Clemson struggles with Pittsburgh. Whatever that game is very close.
Right.
They had to come back from behind and win that game. But do you believe, with that said, that on Monday, January 7th, the College Football National Championship presented by AT&T, that we have the two best teams in the nation squaring off against each other?
Yeah, man, I really do. I think that Alabama and Clemson are the two elite teams, and I think there's something to be said there for that. These two teams are meeting for the fourth straight year, in this whole process here. So I mean, I think it's something really, really interesting there. Would also not fourth straight year, 3 out of the last 4 years. I think that's what it is that they've met right for the title.
Right.
And I tell you what, man, even going back and looking at these games, I'm still not backing off my pick. I still think Clemson's going to come in there and score the upset win on Alabama.
Hey, man, I can see that happening. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he seems like, he's above his years. He doesn't look like that typical freshman. He seems like he's ready for this opportunity. Clemson looks good defensively. I think they match up very well.
I agree.
Against Alabama, and it's one of those same things. Like, if Georgia's going against Alabama, they match up well. It's going to be a good game. Same way with Clemson. But I cannot say that we don't have the two best teams, because these teams have consistently been doing this for the last several years.
Yep.
It goes just so far to say that these teams, like you said, are meeting for the third time. 2 times for the championship, 1 time in the college football playoff, earlier on. That 3 out of the last 4 years, these teams are playing off and squaring off against each other, and this is showing you that Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney have something figured out that nobody else. They're drinking some Kool-Aid, and they're on a level that nobody even knows exists right now. Because these two guys are just impressive.
Absolutely.
All right, man. With that said, let's transition to our talk. We beat the college football playoff and the college football bowl season to death, but let's switch topics and talk some college basketball. Not a lot going on. But college basketball is officially wrapping up Week 8. As we all know, we should be treated to a new AP Top 25 tomorrow. So we have that to look forward to, as always, which is always cool to see, even when teams don't do too much, how things shuffle up. But let's take a look at some upsets and some big wins that happened this week in men's college AP Top 25. Our Week 8 recap starts with and begins with Western Kentucky sitting at 7, 8. They were 6-6 heading into this game. They beat number 15 Wisconsin 83-76, and man, that's a huge win for that team.
Oh, absolutely, man. Let's not kid ourselves. Wisconsin has a really good program, rich in history there, and they got some really good players on there. Maybe even have a Player of the Year candidate sitting on their team as well. But this time of the year, some slip-ups that happen every once in a while that happen there. And Western Kentucky was able to get the best of them and able to pull away there at the end to score a really big upset over number 15 Wisconsin. That is really a big win for this program going into this year.
And Wisconsin has Old Dirty, old number 22.
That's right. That's your boy.
That's my boy. That just like, I'm like, dude, I guarantee, I didn't watch this game specifically, but I guarantee he was struggling. And he might have balled out. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Western Kentucky wins and upsets number 15 Wisconsin. Let's move on to a bigger upset in my eyes.
Yeah.
Princeton. And what Arizona State did and who they've beat this year. This is a big win for Princeton. Sitting at 7-5. They defeat number 17 Arizona State, which probably will drop out of the top 25 after this loss. They beat them 67-66, and that's a huge win for this Princeton team.
Yeah, man, Princeton gets a big defensive stand there at the end of the game to kind of seal this victory and get the win for their program. Arizona State, I mean, this is a different week for these college guys. Remember, you're talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old guys that are playing there in a time period where they're used to being at home opening up Christmas presents and sitting around the Christmas tree eating some turkey. And so they're out playing this game now, and Princeton's able to steal one away from Arizona State, a team that had just knocked off number 1 Kansas the previous week. And so, huge huge win for Princeton, an Ivy League school that I got a chance to watch really, really close when they played Duke a couple of weeks ago. And Princeton's a pesky team, man. They play tough, they play scrappy, they play defense they play an offensive side of the ball that's going to make you play defense the entire shot clock. They're a lot like Virginia, that there's no wasted motion there. And so Princeton's a really good team, even though the record may not indicate it, and they may not necessarily have the talent on their side, but they have a lot of heart, have a lot of effort on that team. And so it is surprising that they would beat Arizona State, but it's not just so far out of the realm of possibility to believe that Princeton couldn't do this.
Oh, yeah, I would agree. I just think, man, after Arizona State doing what they did, a week or two back, and then coming and laying this, I call it an egg, because it's like, look, you're rolling. You're a team that has NCAA implications. Like you're going to make this tournament possibly, but then you go and lay an egg against Princeton that's just not having the best year so far. But again, this Princeton team is somebody that can upset you, and that's what they did against Arizona State. Yep. So before we get in the Week 9 games to look forward to, which we have a huge matchup from one of my teams, but let's look at. I mean, we're nearly 3 months away from the Final Four, man. But that's an exciting time, and a time we are definitely waiting for and can't wait for. But with the holiday season rolling around, everything kind of came to a standstill. We had a couple of games played, we got a couple ranked teams getting upset, but not much going on, man. A lot of these teams are playing, these lower level teams that they're just going to run through, beat them by 40, beat them by 50. So not really much to talk about there. But when you have that, let's recap what has happened so far, and let's take a look at what's ahead and what people possibly miss. Because when you're looking at casual fans playing catch up with the football season coming to an end after this national championship, all you're going to have sports-wise is really some college basketball. So, and obviously you're going to have NFL too, but when you're talking about college sports, let's focus in on some of this stuff that people can look forward to, as March Madness appears.
Yeah, man. So one of the big things that we're looking at coming out of this thing is that, so as this weekend rolls around, a lot of teams are jumping into conference play, which for a lot of us is the second half of the season, or for some people it's when the season really gets kicked off, because you're no longer playing a lot of teams that you don't know a lot about. You start to play teams that you got rivalries with, and so you're looking at some teams there that have done a lot of stuff. Maybe some surprises in there as well. One of the big stories going into this year was obviously Duke's team and their recruiting class that they had. How were those three freshmen going to do? Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, how are they going to look? How are they going to play together? They do have that loss in the season where they played Gonzaga earlier on, and they got that loss there. But man, they've looked really, really good. I've watched every single one of their games, and man, those guys are certainly living up to the hype. For those guys specifically, Zion Williamson, man, I tell you what, he's a freak of nature by all stretches, any way that you look at it. So looking at how Duke is going to do and how those freshmen are going to do once they hit a lot of those environments there that are going to be hard to play in. They haven't done that a whole lot at this point. They haven't played any true, real road games. So they played playing Gonzaga was a little bit of a road game, but that's kind of the extent of it. And so we'll see how these guys handle that kind of adversity that's happening there. So we're looking at that. Looking at teams like Michigan, they've kind of crept their way up there. Wasn't getting a whole lot of love at the beginning of the year. They've worked their way up to number 2 in the rankings at this point. Yeah. And man, their team, they look great offensively and defensively as well. So there's the two things. Villanova going in the wrong direction. They've lost some really head-scratching games there. Makes you kind of wonder about how they're going to play this year. But you got teams like Virginia that's still up there. At Nevada, they're really they're not going to. They're I don't think they play another ranked opponent the rest of this year. Yeah. And so it's kind of wondering what's going to happen there as well. So there's some things right there that we're kind of watching as we get into some the conference play that's getting ready to happen.
Yeah, Nevada doesn't have much going on for this year, like you said, man. But when you talk about Duke, in the article you sent me, and they talk about the rival of Mount Zion. I love that. Yeah. Because it seriously is, dude. He is on another level. He's a projected NBA lottery pick, as we know. I believe he's going to go 1, RJ Barrett 2, and Cam Reddish has a good possibility going 3. We talked about that in our last episode. But, man, like you said, he's a freak of nature. You mentioned Villanova and Michigan both going in totally different directions right now. Michigan's up to number 2, right behind your boys at number 1. And so and that's really after last season's game, or last season's national championship game, again, when you're heading in the wrong direction, Villanova, they're trying to get back in the right, they're find their footing. But again, man, Michigan continues to impress, and they continue to inch up. And it's a team that not a lot of people were giving a lot of respect to until they just blasted Villanova at the beginning of the year. But they just continue to win. You know, they've had a game or two where it's been close, but they keep delivering these wins, which is being very impressive. So let's talk real quick about the 3-point explosion that we're seeing all across the board, not only at the college level, but NBA. But the college, because we're talking college, let's talk about that, because people are hitting threes now and taking threes at an unprecedented rate. And it's like Seth Curry made this cool again. You know, it's like Seth Curry, Klay Thompson, the Splash Brothers, they made this they brought this and made this relevant. And it's like one of those things that people are just shooting threes. And if you have a team that can knock a three down over a two, that works every time, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't, does it take a rocket scientist to figure out that 3 points is more than 2 points?
Exactly.
And so when you're able to trade threes for twos, I mean, you're going to take that every single day. You know, and you're right, man. People are starting to play that same style ball, man, where there's a lot of ball movement. They're playing smaller ball, or you've got bigger guys that are able to step out and take those threes. It's not unheard of for guys that are 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", 6'11" to jump out there at the 3-point line and start shooting from out there. You know, I can remember 5-10 years ago, man, you wouldn't have thought that a guy that was almost 7 feet tall would be stepping out there from beyond the arc. But that's just the way that the game has evolved. It's a little bit of that European style that stepped in there. I remember when Dirk Nowitzki entered the NBA, man, all of a sudden you start seeing this tall, lanky guy shooting threes and then making them. At that point in time right there, you really saw the game really starting to change, and it's changed there in the college level as well, man. Those guys that are still that same size, that have that length out there, they can make that shot and drain that shot. And you're starting to see it. It's no longer the idea of live by the three, die by the three. It is the fact of that is the game plan is to penetrate and pitch and kick out, penetrate and kick out, and you get this ball moving in there that you get a guy with a wide open look, and a lot of those guys, man, 8 out of 10 times you get a wide open look like that with your shooter out there, you're gonna drain that shot and take it every single day.
All right, without a doubt. And let's mention the Pac-12 right now, man. This is a conference right now that cannot. They have to avoid stumbles, man. They just they continue to slip. Like we talked about the Princeton beating Arizona State. You got Oregon already having a loss to Texas Southern. We have the Ohio State in Chicago. The UCLA loses. I mean, UCLA cannot win and can't get out of their way. It's one of those things that the Pac-12 is just right now. They do not look like they might be lucky to get a team into the tournament. I mean, the way they're playing.
You know, it's a little bit of a copycat of how their football season goes. You know, you're looking at a team, one team, maybe two teams out of there to really kind of dominate. And before we even get into conference play, you're already having question marks about these teams about whether or not they're going to be able to compete. I still think that Arizona State's going to be the class of the Pac-12. Oregon's going to be there as well. Don't get me wrong, but I really think you're going to see Arizona State emerge out of that conference.
Oh, I would agree. And before we move on and close this episode out, I do want to talk about that. It just seems the parity at the top right now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like there's really a consensus number one. I mean, you're looking at, you have a great Duke team, still young. You have a good Kansas. You have Gonzaga. You have all these teams at the top. Tennessee. You have Virginia. You have all these teams that can make noise. And my team, Florida State's inching up into the top. They inched up to the top 10. And so all these teams that have athletes that can get the job done, and these teams all have different games. And Virginia slows the game down. Duke pushes tempo and all this stuff, and it's just how they complement each other. It's amazing. But at the end of the day, man, it's like there's rankings for a reason. But at the end of the day, too, any of these teams could just move and flip flop from one week to the other, and it's just amazing how, again, the parity that we have at the top. There's not just one of those teams that you're like. I was at the beginning of the year just watching Duke after one or two games and saying they're going to be the team that smashes everybody. But then you go and see them slip up, and it's like they're beatable. And you see them struggle from time to time when R.J. Barrett's taking as many shots, or when a Trey Jones, they take the ball out of his hands and don't let him deliver like he can towards the end of those games and step up big for you. And you could see the vulnerabilities that some of these teams have, with injuries and stuff. So, man, the talent levels on the floor right now in NCAA is just ridiculous, especially the teams, especially in the top 10 right now. And it's hard to differentiate, like, who should be there. And on any given week, one of those teams just could be better than the other. And we might not even, again, am I saying Florida State could be a top 10 team in the nation? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, they're winning games. And that's what you need to do. Virginia's winning the game. So it's and Duke's winning games. And it's just amazing, man, the level and parity that we have at the top, and I love it.
Hey, man, on any given night, anybody can be beat, and that's one of the great things about college basketball.
Exactly. So let's close it out, man. Let's talk about the Week 9 games to look forward to. We have 3 matchups. We got Oklahoma versus Kansas.
Yep.
Obviously, Oklahoma's going to probably fall in the rankings or whatever. It might bump them up. Who knows? Michigan State versus Ohio State. But we have the one top 10 matchup that I finally get to talk about the Florida State Seminoles this year.
Yep.
They play against Virginia, and if they could win this game, it would be huge. And Leonard Hamilton, man, is having his – we do what we did last year, and they continue to impress me because, like we were talking to a little bit earlier, they don't have that seems like they don't have that 1 or 2 people like Duke has,
right.
or the 2 or 3 people. We just have, it's like somebody stepping up each game, player by committee type thing, to where who's going to score the most points? I don't know. Man might do it one game. It's like, who knows? But
right.
it's aggravating to me because I'm used to seeing that, LeBron James on the floor. Somebody is going to take the ball.
Yeah.
And you're going to be the guy that leads us to victory. But Florida State's one of those that's just nerve-wracking to me because it seems like that the last several years that's how they've been.
This will be a really good matchup for Florida State. Obviously, anybody that plays against Virginia, you're basically playing opposite styles. Florida State's going to want to run with the ball. Virginia's going to slow that game down really, really slow. Get it down, playing their kind of style, playing their kind of tempo. This will be a great road test for Florida State playing in Charlottesville. It's not an easy place to win. But if Florida State can come out of this thing with a big win against Virginia, man, it'll do wonders for their program. And even though they are, in the top 10, they're probably still not getting enough love throughout the country. They knock off Virginia, they'll start getting a lot of conversation surrounding them.
Man, I'm looking forward to this game, even if they lose. I think it's just it's so hard to win in your conference on the road.
Yep.
And it's just so hard to win because so many teams, and Florida State's one of them, that protects their home court. It's like you play them at home, they're going to win. And it's going to be a huge test. But,
yep.
Brother, another episode in the books. I appreciate your time, and thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, man.
And like always, it's been a blast.
Absolutely, man. Right there with you. Enjoying it, having fun, and looking forward to seeing how things shake out this week.
No doubt. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to episode 17 of the College Sports Hour. Make sure to check out and subscribe to the College Sports Hour. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Radio Republic, TuneIn Radio, on heroesmediagroup.com and collegesportshour.com. Make sure to like and follow us on Facebook, guys. We continue to grow our Facebook audience. Also visit our website at collegesportshour.com, where we continue to college sports conversation and post articles. We want to give a special shout out like we always do. The New Year's is coming. It's right around the corner. We want to wish everybody a happy New Year's. We want to wish our family and friends, if we can't be with you, we don't see you, we love you. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you following, listening, and please subscribe. Thanks for continuing to support what we do. Don't forget, guys, to join us next week for another episode of the College Sports Hour.